Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
Boston Rob and Amber are gonna do it.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
You, Brad Culpepper.
I'm tired of you and the fucking chicken.
You can call me the puppet master. They can be my little puppets.
It's not like you're making a deal with the devil here.
You get to milk your own milk, I guess.
Who the hell voted for me?
Chicken.
We got enough rocks here, too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
I'm supposed to talk glamour to you. You understand that better?
Direct from Hobart, it's time for the only Survivor podcast in Australia dedicated to Survivor, bringing you all the latest interviews, episodes, and opinions from the greatest reality show on the planet. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host, Ben Waterworth.
Hello, and welcome to another recap episode of Survivor Oz. Ben Waterworth is not here again, but you have me, Ryan Brink, taking the reins. And today we have a very special person to recap the final episode of Survivor Cambodia. None other than the winner of Survivor China, Todd Herzog. Hey Todd, how you going?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing excellent.
Yeah, it's going really well. I was just speaking to you offline. You were saying how cold it is where you are.
Yes, it is freezing here. Last night I think it was 14 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so not fun.
Yeah, yeah, that's literally freezing. So Todd, obviously the holidays, do you have much planned for this holiday period coming up?
Well, this holiday, I've actually been really busy. I've got a large family, being that I'm from Utah, and so there's constantly family gatherings and then little Christmas parties here and there, and then of course the hustle and bustle of Christmas shopping, which I've actually just almost finished up today. So, yeah.
Yeah, Christmas shopping, it's got to be the worst. Like, I went Christmas shopping 3 nights ago, and it's just so chaotic. Like, I think people just go crazy at the Christmas time.
People absolutely do, you know, and I was actually just at the store, and I was waiting in line to buy just a few things, and I waited for a good 30 minutes. And, of course, I got stuck behind this mother with, like, 3 bratty children, and one of them kept pointing at me saying, "Mom, he's crazy," and I was like, "Yes, I am."
Had you been keeping up with Survivor over the past few years, Todd, and were you excited to see players given a second chance?
Yes, I have been keeping up with Survivor, and I was very excited with the theme of this season, you know, with the fact that America got to vote for who they wanted to see play, and, you know, a lot of these people I know, and so, of course, I was on there voting every single day as well as to who I wanted to come back. And so to see them get out there and play, especially knowing what their personalities are like already, and being ready to see how that would affect their gameplay was really exciting for me.
Was there anyone, you said you were voting every day, was there like a group of people that you were voting for specifically that you want to share?
Well, I really wanted PG back, because PG played with me in China, and as much as she bothered me out there, she's actually really awesome in person, and I feel like in China she played a great game, so I wanted to see her do well again, which she didn't, but, you know, she did get back. I also really wanted to see Steven and Spencer play again, and both of them got on, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and we saw, I guess, aftermath of Steven and Spencer. I don't know how friendly it is between them anymore, but yeah, I was also voting for those two, and PG as well. It's really fantastic. I think, how many have we had back from China now? Amanda, James, Courtney, PG. So
and PG.
There's quite a few who have come back. I think that's 3 out of the top 5 who have been back and had a second chance. So it's always great, I guess, from especially you being the winner of China and seeing people get that chance to come back. And we've seen, obviously, a few of them go quite far on their returns. But yeah, it's fantastic. Before we go into a specific breakdown of the finale, how have you found this season overall?
Well, it was really confusing at first, because I was like, oh my gosh, nobody has alliances. Everybody's all over the place. But I feel like because of that, it made this season very unique. The fact that people were actually playing and playing really hard made it more interesting. So I've really enjoyed this season, to be honest with you. I do feel like we lost quite a few strong characters right at the beginning, and that worried me a little bit. But as soon as things kind of started turning around and Spencer went from the bottom to having more control in the game, and Steven trying to make a big move and all of that, it got more interesting again, I guess I would say.
Yeah, you're talking about some of those bigger characters. Who were those bigger characters that you were disappointed left pretty early in the game?
Well, Vetus, of course. I mean, I just find him to be a unique, interesting person in the first place. I would have loved to have seen PG, obviously, some more. I feel like Varner was one of the biggest storytellers out there, and he went early. Even Wu, because he just kind of brought that lightheartedness to the game. So some of those ones, even Shirin. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I think we found this season, especially because we had the public vote and the people were up, we did have a lot of people who were, I guess, very strategic in their gameplay, and I'm probably similar to you. I love the characters like Keith, I love this season, and Wu to a degree as well, where they can bring a bit of levity to an episode where it can be really bogged down in some like really serious strategic talk. How did you find those kind of characters throughout the season?
I feel like you've got two options. You've got someone who is strategic and is good at it, and someone who is strategic, overthinks it, and overdoes it. I always love seeing people try to play the game. It's people like Timmy, I was interested in because she didn't really seem like she was doing a whole lot up until right at the end. And, I thought her move would have been great, but it just didn't go over so well.
Yeah, it was interesting, her move. She decides to try something at 6, and I guess most people know that making a move is better to do probably at an odd number, so a 5, a 7, a 9, where you don't have to cause that tie. So her move was interesting. The timing of the move was interesting. I think I was really happy for her that she actually decided, you know what, I don't want to be dragged to the end. I don't want to be a third. I'm actually going to see if I can make a move and try and win. So I guess she's someone who was a bit underrated in terms of the edit she got. She played a really good game. She found herself in a good alliance with Jeremy and Steven, and she made it really fun. I think she should be really proud of her game overall.
I actually do agree with you, because I also say I like to look at it. It is a second chance, and she played years and years ago, and to be able to come back when the game has changed and evolved so much and be able to play the way she did compared to her first time around, I feel like she definitely improved and she earned her second chance.
What we're going to do, Todd, is we're just going to break down the final episode a little bit and get your thoughts on some of the things that have happened. So I think we've already talked about PG. So at the start of the episode, we saw them come back to camp. It's nighttime, and Keith is there, and he's saying to Spencer that I can't fathom that. Why would you vote out Abby? What would you have done in this situation when we still had 7, and obviously this finale was huge because we had 6 in the end, and they've decided to vote out Abby, someone who obviously would be a great person to take to the end. What kind of thoughts did you have about, I guess, keeping their core alliance strong and not dragging someone to the end? Like Keith is saying, I can't fathom why you would vote this person out when they're an obvious person that anyone could beat.
I feel like they should have kept Abby, personally, because she would have been someone to bring to the end. She absolutely would have. I do respect the fact that, Spencer, Tasha, and Jeremy did have the conversation on the night where Abby was voted out and said, this is our second chance, and people want game players to be in the end, people who deserve to be there. And so I respect that they decided to get rid of her, because she was kind of just so wish-washy and flipping back and forth. But I feel like it would have been a smarter move on all of their parts, except for Jeremy's, of course, to keep Abby.
So Abby did go pre this episode, but she was such an integral part very early on, and she had her moments towards the latter stages. How did you find her second chance?
I personally like Abby. I really do. I think she is very entertaining. She's just very much who she is. And, people, I guess, feel like that they can use it to their advantage, but then they get so caught up in it and so confused with what is Abby going to do that they freak out, which, in my opinion, makes better television.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Abby's someone who you need in a season like this because she's not predictable. She's someone who's going to throw up a bit of chaos. And I guess, talking about chaos, we didn't really see much from Cass this season, but Abby was...
Exactly.
Abby is definitely one who is willing to, she wants to make a move that's going to benefit her. And I know in her boot episode, she said she is thinking about who she wants to take to the end with her. So she's someone who, I guess, isn't just going to go quietly in the night. She wants to actually make a move and put herself in a good situation. So I think that she's probably someone we could possibly see again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So after that, the next day, Kimmy's trying to make a move on Jeremy. So she's gone off and she's spoken to Keith, and Wentworth comes by, and they're talking about how they can kind of manipulate the vote. So Kimmy comes up with the idea of making them split the vote 2-2 on Keith and Wentworth. And I know we talked about this briefly, but what do you kind of think about Kimmy's move here and the way that she kind of played Jeremy? Because for the most part, it looked like Jeremy was pretty convinced that Kimmy was with him still and that she wasn't going to flip.
I think Kimmy had to have had some sort of really good convincing skills, because Jeremy did seem like he 100% trusted her. And so, mad props to Kimmy for that. I think that it was a really smart idea. It kind of actually reminded me of what we did with James in China, where we were convincing James that he was good, and then we ended up voting him out. And they tried to do that with Jeremy, but, other people weren't jumping on board with it. So I really do wish it would have worked, because it was such a great idea.
Yeah, it was really good. It's something that you don't, I guess, necessarily think that a Kimmy Kappenberg would come up with, but it was a really fantastic idea in theory. But I guess what we found later on was that Spencer, and I guess to a lesser degree Tasha, just felt like she was going to make that move and convince Jeremy to make that decision. So we'll get to that. So we come up to the immunity challenge, and this is the same one I believe they had in Redemption Island, the Boston Rob challenge, where they need to build the staircase, make it to the top, and complete the puzzle. Do you have any feelings about this kind of immunity challenge, Todd?
I mean, I always enjoy the ones where they have multiple steps to them, like, do a puzzle, build this, grab that, and because it kind of gives, it's a very brains, brawn, and beauty sort of thing, where it does have the smarts and it does have the physical aspect. But I feel like a lot of the season we were continuously seeing the same people excel in a certain kind of challenges, which, I wanted to see more of a change, and Jeff did say, we're not doing any more second chance. And yeah, maybe the people who were still playing the game weren't having a second chance, but they were still second chance challenges. And I felt like it would have been nice for them to kind of do something completely brand new.
Yeah, I guess, what are we now, 31 seasons?
They might be running out of ideas.
Yeah, it's getting pretty hard, to think of a challenge where they've got to make them do some kind of physical activity or then do a puzzle, and they are cycling through a lot of the older challenges. There are some really good challenges that they could use. I guess even from your season, China, where you have there's the challenge where you went to the house, you collected the objects and things like that. It would be great to see some of those older challenges back. And we saw earlier in this season a challenge where it was the challenge at night time, and they had to do the clues, and that was fantastic to see an old school challenge back.
I love that challenge. I want to see more of that in the future for sure.
It was great and the winner of that challenge was Steven, which is fantastic because we just had the Joe Show for about 4 episodes, and it was great to see someone else actually have a chance of winning a challenge.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So Spencer wins that immunity, and then back at camp, Spencer and Tasha are spelling out to Jeremy that Kimmy's planning on splitting the vote. And Jeremy confronts Kimmy, and Kimmy does a great job in the hammock, and they're just sitting there, and she convinces Jeremy that that's not going to happen. I guess you just touched on that as well a little bit about how well Kimmy did in convincing Jeremy. I guess that talks to how strong a bond she'd formed with Jeremy. Do you want to maybe talk about that kind of relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. It does go to show that Jeremy and Kimmy must have really made a good connection out there, like that they must have had some big form of trust, because even right after the conversation, they showed Kimmy in her confessional saying, I'm not dumb, I can still do this. And she just repeated what she had said to Jeremy. So it was, sad, but kind of exciting to see Jeremy's shocked face when he found out Kimmy was completely just putting on a show.
So you're talking about the tribal council there, and this tribal council is going to go down in history as one of the most, I guess, epic tribal councils we've ever seen. We had no votes, dual idol plays, the chaos everywhere. people like Keith thinking, what, what's going on? I think we were all thinking a little bit what was going on. And yeah, so we have the first vote. Jeremy plays his idol. Wentworth plays her idol. It comes back. It's 3-3. Jeremy's asking, and he said, "Who voted for me?" He still couldn't believe that Kimmy would flip. His reaction. How did you see that?
I would be upset as well. So I understand why he was upset. I do feel like his reaction, like skipping to vote and whatnot, was very childish. Obviously, it didn't sway the jury's mind, but I feel like it was like, all right, look, you're a grown-ass man. You should probably calm down a little bit and just be like, oh, really? That's what you did to me? Okay, well, here you go. Here's a taste of your own medicine.
So when we had that 3-3 split, what do you think about their decision to target Kimmy and not go for a Keith at that point?
I feel like it was a smart idea because it just went to show that Kimmy, even right towards the very end, was willing to backstab one of her greatest alliance, or people that she trusted. So it was the smartest move, especially when Keith, he's a nice guy and he did well in the game, but at the same time, he's kind of let me go with the flow. He's almost like your typical fourth place winner kind of thing.
So
fifth place in this case. So.
Yeah, I guess in this circumstance as well, we have a deadlock, and Jeff asks the remaining contestants to actually talk about what they want to do, who they're going to vote off. So it's between Tasha, who they're not going to vote off, Kimmy and Keith, and I guess we see at this point where Keith's saying that he doesn't want Kimmy to go. She's a mother. How do you feel about Keith willing to give up his game at Final Six for $1 million because he wants to, I guess, respect Kimmy and respect what she's done?
Survivor is a game, and the fact that he said that right away, like I'll take it, blah blah blah, like I'll go. I was like, are you kidding me? You've just been through all of this to get voted back onto the show. Play as hard as you have, last all the way until almost the very end, and you're going to be like, "Yep, I'll go for Kimmy." Like, no, like you need a reality check that this is a game, and you're there to play a game. And I think it even if you went to the final three after saying that, if the or the jury members were going to be looking at it as who played a good game. That's not good gameplay on Keith for just being like, yeah, you can have it. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I would agree as well. I think that it just comes back to Keith's understanding of the game. He's generally just a nice person, and I guess for him, he felt like he wasn't going to win. I still
right.
I think that he had a chance with the right people. But
I agree with you. He could have had a chance if he was with the right people.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it shows how sincere he is as a person, but I guess, and talking to how you played your game as well, sometimes you have to differentiate between what goes on in the game and what goes on in real life, and you have to put, when you're in a game, it's different to real life. You don't have to be like you are. Sometimes you have to make moves, sometimes you have to backstab, sometimes you have to lie to people, whereas in real life you probably wouldn't do those things.
Yeah, exactly. It is a person's choice if they're going to be like that in real life, but the way I look at Survivor period is it is a game. Only one person is going to win, and if you really want to win, you're going to do whatever you have to take to get to that point where you have a shot at it. And that's why I really did respect so many of the people in the Final Six. I respected a lot of their gameplay because they played hard, and to me, that's what makes a season good, is when you see how badly people want to get to the end. Because they don't want just the $1 million. They also want that title.
Yeah, that's really big. And I know a lot of survivors, they talk about the money. They talk how big a deal that is. But I bet if you ask Spencer Bledsoe right now, would he, if he doesn't win and take the $1 million, could he have the title of Sole Survivor? I bet he would say he would still want the title of Sole Survivor.
Absolutely. That was because Spencer's been a big nerd of the game like me his entire life. And so the idea that I have that title under my belt means so much to me. It's ridiculous. So I mean, making that list of such a short few people is pretty, honoring and amazing.
Well, what do we have now? 31 seasons, so we've got 30 winners, and to be, to be considered one of the best players to ever play this game, and it's such an amazing game that really transcends borders. It transcends, time. This is 15 years now, and I don't know how long ago China was. 7-8 years ago now, Todd. So
8 years ago, yeah.
8 years, well. And I know, and we'll get to this later, but I know we've got our Survivor Oz rankings, and you're ranked incredibly high on those. So to still be considered, one of the best players to ever play the game of all the survivors, it must be really exciting and make you feel really proud.
It's mind-blowing, and it's such an honor because I have been a student of the game since I was 15 years old, and to be amongst these other great people who have played the game is I can't even wrap my brain around it to this day, and it's been 8 years.
They didn't re-vote, they just put their hands up, and in the end it was 4-0. Kimi Kappenberg, we're going to eulogize her a little bit. Overall, your overall impressions of her game?
What were my impressions of Kimi's game?
Yep, overall.
I like Kimi. I think she started off good, and then in the middle, maybe it was the edit, but she was just kind of non-existent. And then it started to come back. And so I've always liked Kimi. Even back in Australia, I liked Kimi because she's entertaining. And I guess I just wanted to see a little bit more from her than what we were at least shown.
I guess it's really hard. We had a cast of 20, and these are people who in their seasons were very popular. There were people who had a lot of confessionals. So to be able to put into 42 minutes every single person is very difficult.
Yeah.
So I guess we found this season where we had a few people, and we'll talk about the purple edit soon and things like that. But Kimi is someone who I know, especially from Survivor Oz, I know Ben and Noah especially are huge fans of Kimi, and we're so happy to see her back. And a lot of people were, because she bridges that link between the past and what we're seeing now. It was great to see players like her, Varna, even Wigglesworth, who we didn't really see at all, come back and get their chance and at least, show that they could play the game.
I completely agree, and I feel like in a future season it would be awesome to do old school versus new school, because it was really interesting to see these people who played 14, 15 years ago and see them get out there and be able to adapt, like the game continuously says, to how much it has changed.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. I know that, I guess, early on in the edit, it was really prevalent where they were emphasizing this is new school, this is old school, what alliance you're in. And even for the first part of the first couple of episodes, I really felt like it was a new school versus old school season. Obviously, new school had the numbers in terms of the people on the cast as well, which probably swayed it in their favor. But yeah, I agree. I'd love to see 1 through 15 old school, and then Micronesia up to now, a new school, and it'll be fantastic to see players from both, I guess, periods of the game come and actually compete. It would be terrific.
It would be, and what's crazy for me to think is I'm considered old school now.
I think people call it middle school, your era, so...
Yeah, I'm fine with middle school. There we go, let's do that.
Yeah. So, Kimi's gone, and they flash really quickly, I guess because they had I think we had 4 tribal councils in this episode of 2 hours, so they really didn't show a lot. They pretty much cut straight back into the next immunity challenge, and this is the immunity challenge. I believe that Sophie Clark beat Aussie in South Pacific, very similar. So we saw Wentworth win this challenge. What were your feelings towards Wentworth winning this challenge and at Final 5, and how do you think that helped her game?
Personally, I was so excited that Wentworth won the challenge, because she would have been the instant vote out, and that would have been completely lackluster. But I feel like she, in my opinion, played the best game of the entire season, because she was constantly at the very bottom, and she found the idols, and she made moves, and she kept her options open, and she talked to people. And so to have her win this challenge and know that she was one step closer to me was just so exciting. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think she's played a great season. Obviously, she's someone who's come into the game with a lower reputation because she left, I think she was 5th boot on her season. So she left really early, and for her to come back and make such a big impact from the first episode where she finds that idol and she's at that challenge, and I know I was screaming at the TV. I was like, oh my god, take the idol, because the way they edited it looked like she wasn't going to take it. So yeah, she's been definitely someone. She's been the breakout star of the season for sure, and definitely could see her coming back on a 3rd season.
Well, see, and that's one thing that was so exciting for me, because when I found out she was coming back, I was like, really? Like, do people even remember her? And that was me just assuming that, like, that all of America would have just forgotten about her. But the way I started to look at it was, we didn't even get to see what kind of game she could play. And so to see her come out, which I think may have been to her advantage, because people didn't get to see all of the tricky things she could have up her sleeve.
Yeah, I agree. She's someone, I guess, that had really been campaigning strongly, and I feel if we hadn't have had like the second chance concept, she's the kind of a player that, if this had been two years later, she's not someone who would even make the ballot. So
absolutely, she's
someone who's been campaigning strongly for at least a year. I know she campaigned very strongly for Rob's podcast and did the Miss Survivor and all that contest, and she made the top 3 and had debate. So she's been on the radar, I guess, of the Survivor community itself, probably the hardcore fans for a long time, at least a year, and to see her get her chance was really fantastic, and she really made the most of it. Out of anyone out there, she's really shown that sometimes you can just have bad luck in your first game, and that doesn't mean you're not a good player, because I think she showed everyone this season that she's a terrific player.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. And I'm definitely not disappointed in her.
So we get back when we've got the immunity, and she's at camp, and she decides to make a fake idol for Keith. Now, we saw that she made this idol, and it looked fantastic. She wrapped it up in the packaging that she had from her first idol, and had the clue and had the note in there and everything. And she gives it to Keith and says, this is a fake idol, but play it. Do you think that she did the right thing by telling Keith it was a fake idol? Do you think that maybe she should have just said, no, it's a real idol, just play it at Tribal, play it before they go to the vote and see what happens? Or how do you think she played it? Because obviously it didn't work, so
right.
How would you maybe have played it in that situation?
I didn't even think about her telling him to tell him it was real and play it. I really didn't even think about that, but wouldn't that have been interesting? But I think, first of all, she did a very good job at making that idol. It looked pretty legit,
Yeah, it looked
and
fantastic.
Since all of them looked different, it was pretty good. I do feel like Keith kind of played it up a little bit, that he had found an idol by walking around holding his pocket constantly, which, I mean, is your first sign of like, okay, well, he's pretending to have an idol. So that was like, all right. And then I feel like if she told him it was a fake idol, told him it was a real idol, and he played it and, was still voted out, that she made it to the final 3, she might look like a total bitch for the jury. Like, haha, I screwed you. Yeah. So maybe she was thinking about that.
Do you think the jury would see it that way, or do you think they would see it as her trying to make a move?
It's a good question. I thought the jury would be a whole lot more all over the board instead of like an entire clean sweep, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was expecting them to be a little bit more harsh at Tribal, and so I really don't know. Because I am completely shocked with the outcome of the end in the first place.
Yeah, and we'll get to that, and it's something that was really, I guess, surprising, but so in this, go to the Tribal Council, and it's a pretty straightforward Tribal Council. Keith doesn't play the idol. They show snippets of Wentworth looking at Keith, looking at his pocket, looking at his bag, and in the end, he doesn't play it. And I know he's come out, and his Ponderosa video, for anyone who hasn't gone and watched his Ponderosa video on CBS, on YouTube, it's fantastic. It's terrific, and he talks about why he didn't play the idol, so I definitely recommend people going and watching that. But
I haven't watched it. I'm going to have to do that myself.
Yeah, it was probably the best one I've seen. And this whole year, the whole Ponderosa videos have probably been the best that they've ever made. So they're really good. Definitely worth watching. And Keith just talks about that I don't know. It could be real. So they have this debate. I think that Wentworth maybe mouthed to Sierra that Keith had an idol. So straight away they're asking him, and he said, "Yeah, I've got it here in his pocket." And he shows it, and they think it could be real, but they're not sure. So really interesting. Keith overall, we're just going to eulogize Keith. How did you find his game overall, Todd?
I just think Keith did his simple country, good guy on the show. I wasn't a huge fan of his gameplay because I don't think he knew exactly what kind of game he was playing, but I feel like he was good, like true to himself, and so he did a good job as far as keeping himself likable.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job of that. Probably my favorite Keith moment of the season was the toot toot. How did you find that part?
I thought it was great. I mean, it shows that he's got a sense of humor. You know, he can laugh and still enjoy the simple things while being out there and miserable. And it did make him shine. And I feel like America loved him for that. Or, sorry, not just America, Australia as well.
Yeah.
But just because it shows that he's a funny old country guy, you know?
So, again, because this episode is so jam-packed, we're not really seeing a lot of back at camp, and they cut back straight to the final immunity, and we've got the challenge where we've got to put balls into a circuit, and they go left and right.
I think the first time was Token Sheens that they did that, right?
I believe so, and I also believe it might have been used in Redemption Island as one of the Redemption Island challenges. From memory. So it's been used a couple of times. It's a really interesting challenge. I know watching one of Kelly Wentworth's periscopes that they actually had a practice run beforehand.
Oh, really?
Which was really fascinating, and I know Kelly said she did really well in the practice run, and then when it got to the challenge, she just had a moment and lost it, which was disappointing. But this kind of a challenge to go to the end, do you think this is a fair challenge because it doesn't involve a puzzle, it doesn't involve endurance? Well, it does involve endurance. It's just a real concentration. Do you think this is the right kind of challenge to use for a final immunity?
I don't like it for a final immunity.
Yep.
I think it would be a good, final 5 challenge to get to 4.
Mm-hmm.
For immunity, I've always been a fan of go back old school and who can last the longest standing in one position or holding it there or something like that. You know, that's always been my favorite. Yes, it is endurance, but it's also a lot of concentration. So I find it fascinating when they're standing somewhere for 30 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, how bad do you want this? Do you have to pee? Okay, pee your pants. You know?
That gets back to probably my favorite final immunity, which was in Plough. We have Tom and we have Ian standing on a pole. I would personally love to see one of those challenges back as a final immunity because it says, how much are you committed to, seeing this out and making the end? And it doesn't involve a lot of other stuff. It's just how much do you want it? For me,
exactly.
It's a really
I like
big one.
that.
We see that at the end, Jeremy is the winner. He wins this final immunity, and his emotions start to come out. In terms of how he reacted, how do you feel that his reaction was portrayed on the show?
I like Jeremy. I think he played a wonderful game. But I guess as soon as he started the skipping, and then his reaction to winning this challenge is where I first said, okay, well, Jeremy just won the game. And second, I was like, I was a little irritated because it was almost as if he knew he had just won or winning that immunity. And so he was like, okay, now it's okay for me to say that my wife is pregnant. Now it's okay for this and that. And it's like, again, it just kind of goes back to a little childish in a way.
He's got to make a decision. Who's he going to take off? And he's talking to Wentworth. He's talking to Spencer. And he really makes Spencer squirm in the hot seat at Tribal Council. He's really making him, and Spencer's someone who is probably a little paranoid, and he really damages his own game at this point because he's seen as someone who's really squirming. And what do you think about what Jeremy did there by not really reassuring him? And I guess in your final 4, you had a similar situation where I guess you had Denise coming in, and she was someone who everyone thought could win if she made the end. and Amanda had immunity at that stage. So, how did you feel like going in? Were you confident that you were going to make the final three with Amanda and Courtney at that stage, or was Amanda going off, and did you have any concerns, or were you worried about it?
I guess call me like completely naive, but I was like, I'm sitting in the final three. I am good to go. I knew in my head, but I had no idea that Amanda and Courtney and Denise had been talking about me until I watched it. I was like, what? So that's bad on my part for not being on top of the game. But now I don't know if this is gameplay on Jeremy's part to make Spencer look stupid in front of the jury, but if it was gameplay for him to try to get a reaction out of Spencer, then good job on the gameplay. However, I'm not surprised by Spencer's reaction at Tribal Council because, like you said, he is a paranoid kind of, like, what's going to happen kind of person, and he's going to freak out in a way. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but you're not going to sway an entire jury. You're going to make yourself look stupid.
Yeah.
Or immature.
I think that's very true. I think what came out a lot at that very end of the game was that Spencer is 22 and he's playing with an older cast. I think he was the youngest by a long way. I think Joe was maybe 26, but even Joe was considered young on the cast compared to a lot of the others. And we're looking at the jury, and they're an older jury. We've got parents, even the younger ones like Sierra has children. So I just don't feel like he made the right move at that stage, and I think that really impacted any ability he had to go to the end and win. I actually thought he would get more votes than 0, but that's just the way the game played. I guess Wentworth goes out here just to eulogize Wentworth. Overall impressions of her game.
I loved Wentworth. I did not think I would when I found out she was going to play. She completely turned my mind around. I think she did a fantastic job. And honestly, I wish that she was in the final three.
Yeah, I also wish she was in the final three, and we'll get to that now. So we'll cut straight back, because they don't do, breakfast, and then we cut straight to Tribal Council. So really interesting. We had this Tribal Council, and we had the jury, and they're starting to ask questions. They're not asking Tasha any questions, and it's pretty evident straight away that she's not even in contention. We haven't talked about Tasha yet.
Right.
I guess here's a chance for us to just discuss, how do you feel that Tasha played her game, and why do you feel like she made it to the end, but she was considered a GOAT?
Oh, man, see, and this is something that I've thought about quite a bit, too, because I feel like there were moments throughout the season where Tasha did seem like she was doing well and, like, being in charge of her game, but then it just kind of seemed like she faded away and was just lucky to be good friends with specific people. I am curious about the editing of the final Tribal Council, because I do wonder if people asked her questions and they just didn't put them in. Because that's my Tribal Council was much, much longer than obviously what aired.
Yep.
So that is something I'm curious about. However, she just seemed kind of like okay with sitting there while these other questions were being asked that were like super serious winners questions, and she wasn't getting them.
What I found interesting was that we had that moment in the very first episode. It was in the first 9 minutes, and it was introducing all the players returning, and we have that moment with Tasha, and she says, I'll get dirty in the game, but I'll pray for forgiveness afterwards. But I feel like we never saw that moment where she needed to pray for forgiveness, because apart from the period that she had on Angkor where she was really good and her and Savage got the numbers and survived, a 4-2 split originally.
Yeah.
She really just floated in the game, and she seemed content to go with Jeremy to the end. And it was surprising because she's someone who, I guess from her first season, was someone who looked like she wanted to win. But at the end of the day, she was just content going with someone she'd made a friendship with to the end and not making a move. And I guess there was a point where, I guess it was at 7, where the girls had the majority and there was talk maybe of a women's alliance. Do you think that maybe that's the path she should have went down?
I think she absolutely should have. First of all, she should have been able to take a step back and look at her deal with Jeremy and Spencer of like, let's go to the final three together, but she should have been able to say to herself, wait a second, what am I thinking? Because both of them have actually made moves in this game, and I've done nothing. And so why would she think that she has a shot against two of the people who have played the hardest is the most confusing thing to me. But if she would have gone with the women, I feel like she would have had a better shot.
Look, do I think she beats Wentworth in the end? No. But if she gets Wentworth out at 4 and takes Kimmy and Abby to the end,
and Abby,
a very good chance of winning.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If she went to the end with those two and got rid of Wentworth at 4, I think she could have won. It would have. I really do.
Yeah, I agree, and we even saw in the that Final Four challenge that Tasha beat Wentworth in that challenge. So, it's disappointing for her to come back and have. I guess she had a really strong reputation coming into the game, and I think it's been damaged through this game, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It really is unfortunate because I originally really liked her, her gameplay, everything in Brains, Bond, and Beauty. So.
We're talking about the other person who got 0 votes, and it's the young lad Spencer Bledsoe. He was one of my favourites in Cagayan, and he was someone I was really excited to see play again. He goes into the game, he's talking about he wants to form relationships finally in this game with people, and he feels like that's going to happen. We have this whole series arc that Spencer's forming relationships, but at the end he still gets no votes. What do you think was his biggest downfall in the game, Todd?
Oh, see, okay, I'm like you. Spencer was my favorite the last time he played. And so I was so excited to see him come back. And I was so excited that he was going, that he made it to the final 3. And I even feel like his final tribal council speech was fairly decent. I feel like his biggest downfall may have been the little temper tantrum he had the night before. But at the same time, I feel like Jeremy's cheap shot answer with tears and crying about family just kind of screwed everybody over.
So we'll get
unfortunately.
To that. Yeah, we'll get to that now then, I guess. So we're talking about Jeremy, and Jeremy's won this season 10-0. His final remarks. So he's held this in the whole game. We've seen it from the very first episode where he's said, I'm doing it for Val, I'm doing it for my 2 children, and I'm doing it for my unborn, we didn't know at the time, son. And he waits until the very last moment, the last question, and he says, I'm doing it for Val, I'm doing it for my unborn son. Val came out, she was pregnant, she told me that we're having a son. And I guess it comes back to what I was saying before, that this is an older cast, and a lot of those people on the jury had children. So
exactly.
How do you think he played that? Obviously, it was a good move. Do you think that was the turning moment, or do you think that he already maybe had the numbers and it was just helping him get over the line?
I feel like Jeremy had the votes to win. I really didn't think he had all the votes to win. Personally, if I was on the jury and I heard that, I guess maybe this is cynical or something of me, but I would have been like, okay, is this a Johnny Fair play? Is this, is this what's happening right now? Yeah. And I would have questioned it because it's just such a perfect timing to bust out the unborn child and, my family. And I guess the way I would look at it is like every single person there has a family of some sort. Everybody has life and struggles. And so it's like, I don't appreciate it when people use that as a reason to win rather than how they played the game. I guess that's my biggest issue with it, because Jeremy did play a really good game, but were the votes swayed because of his family situation or because of his game? That's, I guess, my biggest thing with this entire finale.
Yeah, look, I agree with you as well. I sometimes find that people try and draw in, personal aspects of their life outside of the game, and they try and use that to sway the people in the jury. And drawing back to your own season, like Denise, and she come across, and like I told you pre-interview, I'd actually just watched China again for the first time in a couple of years last week, and Denise's story, she's someone that I just felt, she's someone who comes from a very low socioeconomic background. She was working as a lunch lady. She's got these kids, she's got a husband, and I guess in your situation where you felt like if she made it to the end, do you think that that would have swayed the jury to vote for her?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
I didn't think Denise had a chance of winning. But I used that to help convince Amanda and Courtney that it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go for sure. I feel like Denise would have got some votes, but I don't think she would have beat Denise or Courtney. I mean, Amanda or Courtney.
I don't perceive different players. I guess someone like Spencer, he was just perceived as being very young to this older cast. I just feel like him against Jeremy, I think Jeremy played it really well. He found two people who you wouldn't think would be GOATs, but when they're up against him and the jury that is there, they ended up being the perfect people to take to the end.
It's very true. And you know what? I'd like not to downplay Jeremy's game at all, because I feel like he played a fantastic game from the very beginning.
Yeah, he did.
So he did a really, really good job. And I was very pleasantly pleased with it as well, because he was another one of the people who I was like, I mean, will he play a good game? And he got on that, and he did. It's just that one question. I'm telling you, that one answer.
Do we want to speak of any more about Jeremy? Is there anything else you'd like to say about him before we move on, Todd?
I am happy for him, and I think he did deserve to win, and I am happy for his family as well. He did a great job. And
yeah, look, and a huge congratulations, Jeremy. He was actually my first winners pick in about 10 seasons, so yeah,
nice.
I was happy that I finally got someone who I could pick to. I was a little convinced. I actually spoke to the 20s pre-game, and Nadia said to me that she said to Jeremy, "Don't vote out Joe. Keep these people around so they have the targets." And as soon as we went to the game, it was so fascinating for me to watch, because Jeremy's first, confessionals are, I want to keep Savage, I want to keep Jeremy, I want to keep Joe, they're going to be my meat shield. And I was like, well, that's so fantastic that he's discussed his game, I guess, with other players outside of the game that he trusted, and then we're seeing it play out in real life. And this actually happened. I was actually speaking to the 20s just as they left for Cambodia as well, so there was no spoilers at the time, so it was fantastic to see that really play out in real life. Overall impressions, Todd, of a great season. Where do you think this season maybe ranks overall in terms of the 31 that we've seen?
Oh my goodness. I could say it could be in the top 10, in my opinion. I think just because it was so different. I would rank it up in the top 10. I don't know how the world feels about it, because I guess I'm just looking at viewer ratings being low.
Yeah.
But I just like how it was extremely different.
It's always very hard to rank, and we get this question a lot at Survivor Oz about where we perceive seasons to be. I always come back to, it's really hard to rank seasons that are all-star seasons. I think you need to look at them differently, and I also think you need to look at the generations of the seasons. It's always very hard to rank a season that was in the first 10 with something that we're seeing right now. I always try...
Absolutely.
Lately, I've been ranking seasons post heroes and villains, so this 10 here, where do I rank these seasons? And I really was a big fan of seasons like the Philippines, and also I loved Cagayan, which was terrific with Tony, and I'd probably have it probably behind those seasons in the most recent seasons, but it's really very difficult to rank. Okay, Todd, so we're going to go to some questions that people have.
Okay.
And the first question, it's actually just one I had. Like I told you, I'd been watching China very recently, so my question to you was, so you went on the reward challenge to the Great Wall and had, Chinese delicacy. And from memory, you and Courtney really disliked the food that they had there, and, just eating watermelon and stuff like that. So in Cambodia, we saw that Spencer, Wentworth, and Keith went to the temples, and they had a meal there as well. But what we saw is that they had, Western food. So do you feel like that's a good thing, that if we're going to a place that we're very specific, so this is very specific, this is Cambodia, you were in China, we've had these countries very specific with specific delicacies. Do you think it's a good thing that they are not giving them the delicacy, but they're actually having normal food at this point?
I loved that they went to the temple and that they got food and this and that. I loved going to China, to the Great Wall, and honestly, they made it look like we hated our food. It was more that we didn't understand what we were doing with our food. I had no idea what I was doing with it. It was all raw. But, yeah, it's smart to have some food that people understand, because we started eating raw meat and we didn't know what we were eating. And that's obviously not a good thing to have right before a final immunity.
Yeah, I guess from memory, was there like a steamer or something that you needed to put it in? I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was like fondue, but apparently it was not fondue. I don't know what it was. I've never had it before or again in my life, but it was just, we were putting raw meat in something and taking it out and hoping it was good for us, and then got sick from it.
Yeah. So we'll go to some questions that we had from Facebook. First one's from Zachary Chong, and he asks, how does Todd feel about being ranked number 4 out of Survivor players on the Survivor Oz rankings?
Oh, I mean, obviously I feel awesome about it, because number 4 out of 30 winners is unbelievable, especially since it was 8 years ago. And it just makes me want to even more go back and try again to see if my game is still up to par.
So that's a question that I was going to come to afterwards, but you've raised it now, Todd. So we've seen, like I said, a lot of players from China come back, and it was such a small cast as well. You only had 16, so you've had a large proportion come back. Do you have a desire to come and play a game again? And probably secondly to that question, if you did come back, is there a type of season that you would like to come back on?
Oh my, of course I would love to come back. I would 100% say yes without any questions. I would drop everything and go. I would love to play again. I would love to play either all winners or winners and runner-ups or winners and favorites. I would not want to play as like a captain, like Redemption Island kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I would like that.
No, I think those seasons are very hard, because I guess like Redemption Island, we had the two extremes where we had Rob come back and win, but we also had Russell go very early, so
exactly.
Those seasons are very hard to tell. Matt Barone, we've answered your question now, so we've got another question from Aiden. What advice, if any, did you give PG, and were you disappointed she left so early?
I only wished PG good luck. I told her that I was rooting for her. I was also trying to get people to vote for her. I honestly thought that PG would have a better game in her, so I didn't want to give her advice, because she's not the kind of person who would take that kind of advice anyway. But after watching her in her first episode and second episode, I was like, PG, she should have called me. She would called me and said, like, what should I do? Because she was just like a sitting duck.
Yeah, and I guess the way she got voted off as well was really disappointing, because she effectively put her own name up as a target. So
yeah,
I kind of feel
exactly.
like she voted herself out, which is disappointing. We got another question from Chris Horzenik. I'm just going to paraphrase a little bit. He's asking about voting blocks. What was your feeling about that this season and the term voting block?
Oh man, I guess voting block is a good way to say it, but I like to call it like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Instead, it's like, run around and see who wants to jump on your side and go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it's not like that all the time, but it was really nice to have something new and different, because everybody was so paranoid and on the edge of their seat, and we had a lot of blindsides.
I know, it's fascinating. I think it's just, people were in alliances, and I don't know why they weren't referring to them as alliances, because there was clearly alliances. It was just that, I guess because we had so many changes throughout the season, we had so many splits and tribe changes, that to form a huge alliance was pretty much unattainable. But we did have core groups.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, because like they really didn't have a chance to get together and stay together because of all the changes going on. And so, but you're right, there were, and I guess people were just so afraid of the word alliance that they were like, let's call it a voting block.
Miles at Miles of Reality, he asks, how does he, Todd, you, think his final tribal performance compares to Jeremy? So I guess comparing your own final tribal performance to Jeremy's, I guess in terms of the way, I know the votes in your season was, I think it was like 4-2-1 or something like that. But,
yeah, 4-2-1.
But obviously Jeremy won a lot more clearly, but I guess maybe talk about how you think you went on the jury, and you did really well, I guess, convincing John Robert to I think, change his vote and vote for you, compared to Jeremy getting everyone to vote for him as well.
I feel like Jeremy and myself, we had completely different tribal council speeches, and for different reasons. I'm very happy with mine because honestly, I feel like I went into that tribal council being at like second place. I thought I for sure was going to be second, maybe third place. And so I was very just straightforward and blunt about what I had to do. And, you know, I had to win those votes. And Jeremy had a lot of good answers, but again, like I've said it earlier, there's that one answer that I call a cheap shot.
Yeah, so you talk about thinking that you might come in second or third. Who did you think leading into that final tribal then was going to win the season?
Going into it, before we had asked any questions, I thought Amanda would win. After we were done with the questions and everything was said and done, I thought Courtney had won.
So I guess in terms of that break that you have, I don't know how long it was for you from China till the final reveal. Did you feel that you had lost the season? Did you know on the night that you had won, or did you feel like that there was still a chance that you could win?
I honestly thought either Courtney won or me and Courtney had tied.
Yep.
So that's what I was expecting. I was like, especially right before the live show, Jeff came to us and said there is a chance of a tie. And if there is a tie, we will let you know live what happens. And so I was like, great, we're going to have to build fire on stage live.
That would be really fascinating. Look, and while I've got you here as well, like one of the best moves in a final tribal council, I believe, was the way that you play John Robert, you know, the poker player. You fed his ego, and then I love in the reunion show where you're talking to Jeff and he asked, did you play John Robert? And you're like, well, yeah, obviously. And it's fantastic to see his face. And, like, I think he respected it in a way, but like he was definitely played.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of surprising that he likes to think that he is so hardcore and great, but he's not that hard to play, you know?
Here's a good question, and it's from @Kelso_86, and they ask, what's more important, the social game or strategic game?
Ooh, I think they come in pretty equal, to be honest, because you have to be social out there to get people to like you. But you also have to be strategic and not be afraid to put those people that like you on the jury. And that's where it's tricky, because some people who play only social get hurt, and that could come back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
So both are very key.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think that you need to probably find that balance, and I think you did that really well in your season. So, question here from Nick Berman. He asks, if the final tribal council was Kelly, Jeremy, and Tasha, do you think that Jeremy still wins?
No, I think Kelly would have won.
I was trying to do the maths as well, and I think that I found at least 4 votes definitely that Kelly has. I think I had about 3 or 4 that Jeremy definitely has, and there was probably just a couple that were, you just don't know. You don't know how it's going to play out on the night.
Yeah.
So it could have really gone either way, but I think it would have been a definitely more exciting tribal council to have.
Absolutely. I think it would have been extremely close, for sure. But I feel like Kelly may have been able to get the win. From
Let's Draw Rocks, they ask, do you feel that there was any players that related to the game that you played in your season?
I feel like, I kind of feel like Kelly played a game similar to me. I feel like Spencer played a game similar to me. I mean, more of the questioning things, but also wanting to be with specific alliances. But I don't know, everybody plays such different, unique games every season that it's hard to find someone who plays just like you.
I think your game in particular, it's very different to a lot of the games that we've seen, and I think that's why people rank your game incredibly highly, and me personally as well rank it very highly in terms of compared to other players, because you were so unique in the game. So it's probably hard to rank your own game compared to others.
Well, and I don't want to like pinpoint somebody as being like me, you know, like they can do that if they want to, but I don't know. It's just like, oh yeah, they're playing my game, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone's like a cocky SOB.
So before I ask you the final questions as we do at the end of every episode, I'm just going to ask you one more question. This is one I've been asking survivors that I've been talking to lately, and you might not have heard this, but Australia is actually creating a new Survivor season for the first time since 2002. Yeah. And which is really exciting for a lot of us who are mega fans of the show, and it's the first time that we've actually had a chance to apply. And I've been asking survivors recently about what their advice would be to someone who was applying for the show in Australia, and it really corresponds to Americans as well who do apply. Do you have any advice for people who are looking to apply for a season of Survivor, and what should they be doing?
The most I will ever tell anybody when you audition for Survivor is take the person you are, take your personality, and let every single ounce of it out in 3 minutes on a tape. You have to show exactly who you are. You cannot pretend to be somebody else. Let them know why you want to play, how you want to play, and why you're going to win. And if you can jam-pack all of that in 3 minutes, you're good to go.
And we're up to our final questions of the season, and these are just questions where I ask pretty straightforward. You just give me back a player that you think corresponds with that. So, starting off, who do you feel was the best player of this season?
Kelly Wentworth.
Fantastic. Worst player of the season?
PG.
We love you, PG. Most underrated player this season?
Oh, man. Abby.
Most overrated player this season?
Jeremy.
The player you most want to see return?
Spencer.
The player who you were put in the situation where they were really, their game was stuffed up for reasons that they couldn't really control?
I'm going to say Terry. Because it was completely out of his control.
Yeah, and look, and again, every time Terry is raised, look, it was so fantastic to see Terry and his son and his wife at the live finale, and to see him doing well as well is it's kind of amazing, really. To think.
I love him and I love his family, and so I'm so grateful for them, and I would love to see him play again.
Yeah, me too. Definitely up there as well. So we call this the Purple Kelly of the season. So the person who had the invisible edit.
Oh, who had the...
Yeah, who had the invisible edit.
Oh, I thought you were talking about her. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, you could
invisible edit. I know, exactly.
One that I've been strong on was actually Kelly Wigglesworth. She's...
okay, yes, there you go. Perfect, because I couldn't even think of her name, but yes, there you go.
So can I just ask you a little bit? I know we've only got more question after this, but Kelly Wigglesworth, in terms of, you're a fan of the game. I'm a fan of the game. Like you said, you've been watching since you're 15. I've been watching since I was 12. Like, I remember watching Borneo and watching Hatch and Rudy. I was a big fan of Rudy at the time. He reminded me of my pop. And I was like, yeah, I'll go for him. He's very similar to my pop. He was the only one I knew. And plus, I was 12. So we're watching these players, and we've got Kelly Wigglesworth. And she's this, I guess, iconic player. She lost 4-3 in the finale. And she comes back for this season, and she has moments to start episodes for the first couple, and then she's invisible. Why do you think that she was invisible? Why do you think that? Do you think it's just her personality?
As far as I could tell from the editing and whatnot, she just seemed almost like she was there to be there, not to even try. It was weird. It was very strange, and it was kind of disappointing because it seemed like she wasn't willing to learn the way Survivor is played now.
Yeah, I think she was very set in the way that it had been played. She wanted to build the shelter, as she said. She wanted to form relationships and hope that would get her through. The history that she has to the game, that made people want to keep her a bit longer, but at the end of the day, she can only go so far without making moves and doing anything. And, when I think, to her credit, which was not shown, there have been people who have come out and spoken about her relationship with Joe, and that she was a bit of a threat, that she was forming this close friendship with Joe, and that's why they got her out when they did. But we just didn't see it. We didn't see anything.
Yeah, we really didn't see anything, except for her just walking around, literally, all the time.
Yeah. Who do you think was the fan favorite of this season?
The fan favorite of the season, I would have to say, the fans love Joe, and I feel like Keith got up there.
Yep.
And I feel like those two probably.
Fantastic. And we've answered the last two. Contestant most similar to, we said probably no one. And where would you rank this season? We said it would be probably around the top 10 area.
I would even go as far as saying like final 7.
Yeah.
Let's go that far.
Okay. That's about it for us today, Todd. Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
It is so great to hear from you. Just in general, if you don't mind, how is life going at the moment? How is everything? I know it's been pretty public, everything that's been going on in your life, and you know, when all that stuff.
My life
I know you're
has
in my
been
prayers and everyone else's.
Yeah, you know, my life has been very public, and that's okay because I'm doing fantastic. Have been for a long time now. I am happy, healthy, strong, sober, and you know, with going through my alcoholism and having to go through rehab and whatnot, it's just another lesson to me that you can get over and on top of anything you put your mind to.
No, it's fantastic to hear you, and I know a lot of people will be excited to hear you speaking on the podcast because I know you don't do too many these days, but it's fantastic to have someone who I know a lot of Survivor superfans rank so highly and speak about, you know, this season. So thank you so much for doing that, Todd.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've had a good time.
Okay, thank you for listening. That's the final episode recap for Survivor Cambodia. Second Chances. Season 31 is in the book, and, well, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but I feel like there's a void in my life right now. We've been talking about this season since May, and we're now at the end of December, and it's gone. This has been a great season. We've seen the previews for the next season, which is looking like it's going to be a very difficult, challenging season for those contestants out there, but yeah, can't wait till February comes. I think it's on February 17th, the next debut episode. Please make sure that over the break you're still following our website at survivoroz.com. We've recently updated it around a month ago, and I know those people who have checked it out have been giving it really good praise. And if you have someone who hasn't been on there, just check it out. It's really fantastic. And I know recently we just posted our top 10s of the year for 2015 with some really great articles that you can go back and look at. Please make sure you're also following us on our social media channels, facebook.com/SurvivorOz, and also on Twitter at SurvivorOz. Really fantastic year. Ben Waterworth will be back in the new year with Noah and the whole gang, the whole Ozlets, back to recap Survivor. And we'll also be talking a lot about Australian Survivor in the new year, so make sure you're following us. Great article up on the website right now from Big Brother contestant Gemma, and giving us advice about how she got casted, and it's really fantastic, and she's got 7 tips on how you can get casted onto the new show. Okay, you've been listening to Ryan Brink. Have a happy holidays, and until next time, stay clean.